Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Life Chronicles and Deep Dives podcast. I'm here with Coach Cornelia, all the way in Romania,
Hello, everybody, and welcome back.
and my name is Coach Mika Ranjit, and I'm here in the United States. Today, we're going to be talking about movement, all forms of movement, what's good, what potentially is not good, and some side stories that might be a little funny.
Mm,
I hope you'll stay with us to the end. So for me, movement is something that has always been a part of my life. From childhood, I was always running around the jungle gyms, probably doing things at the jungle gyms at like second and third and fourth grade that I probably shouldn't have been doing, like flips and trying to jump from one thing to the next and always trying to go the extra distance. And as I got older, it changed into like sports and free running, parkour type stuff. I did play basketball. I did play soccer. Um, I tried my hand at football, and then I fell into martial arts, which is kind of my area for movement, and then like weightlifting. More recently, I've kind of moved towards a combination of martial arts, weightlifting, and yoga. And so from childhood, I've actually done a lot of different, kinds of movement that is fun, that is some of it's not healthy. I have done some interesting stunt work that just to see if I could do something, I would do it. Um, which doesn't always equal good types of movement. So for me, it's just trying to find a balance. Now
mm,
I have a spinal injury in my lower back from military service, which prevents a lot of the extra movement that I used to do. Um, and some of the movement that I have to do now is extra careful. And so I just kind of have to take it step by step. Oh, one more thing. I when I was younger, I used to do some dance, not like at a studio or anything. It was just like a school program that they had. And then as I grew up, I realized that through martial arts, that dancing and martial arts are very similar. Um, so I would listen to movie soundtracks from like martial arts movies, especially like the poetic and balletic, slow motion and highly choreographed fight scenes. And I would see it as like a dance. Translates into years later, as an adult. Over the last few years, me and my fiance have been working on a couple of different dance routines um, that combine like a traditional or classical sense of dance, which I have to have a like a teacher teach me how to do those things because I I don't know how to do them. And I move kind of clunky, but it's okay. Classical combined with contemporary dance movements, um, just to keep the body going.
that's great. But before the back injury that you have now, did you break anything?
No, never
Oh,
had
that's
any major injuries from just movement. I mean, I've sprained some ankles, but I've never actually maybe hit my head on stuff. Never
mm,
broke a bone. Never dislocated anything. And I mean, we're talking about climbing trees and then falling out of them, we're like 20, 30 feet, hitting branches on the way down. We're talking about jumping from the bed of one vehicle to the hood of another vehicle while it's moving.
mm, mm.
Um, we're talking about hanging out in the bed of a truck while it does donuts and then flying off the side of it. I mean, we're seeing a lot of different types of
So now,
types of movement.
now I get what you're saying, that not all the movement is good.
Yeah. not all the movement is
Yeah.
healthy. Yeah. I mean, but I see it and I'd want to do it, right? So like I wanted to try this jump from the bed of a truck in onto the front of this SUV, and it had like a brush guard or like a push cage on the front of it. So it had something for me to grab onto. I probably wouldn't have attempted if it didn't have something for me to grab onto. And so both vehicles locked into about 20 miles an hour. I jumped from the bed of the truck and landed on the hood of the SUV. Um, yeah, probably not the smartest thing I've ever done in my life, but I did want to try it. Now, with martial arts, and like parkour, I've been doing like I did parkour before I even knew it was a thing. So in grade school, this is part of the stuff that I was talking about not doing right. Probably the safest stuff in grade school. So we'd have like these metal bars, jungle gyms. One looked like a house or a train, and then hamburgers and like now the more modern type of jungle gyms and monkey bars. And I'd be trying to like jump off of those things or do flips while I'm jumping off of those things or tuck and rolls or jump from one to the next with no hands. Like it was quite intense. But I never broke a bone.
You're very lucky then.
Yeah.
I remember I used to first I started with gymnastics like probably every other girl. And I was outside trying to impress my friends on iron what's that called, like when you can do those gymnastic moves. It's like I don't know
Like
how
on the
it's called.
bar,
Yeah,
the bar.
exactly.
Okay.
And I was going round and round and round. I was keeping my knees around it and just going around. And they were counting 29, 30, 31, and so on. And then I fell down and just break my head really bad. And my grandma was coming over and she saw the blood and she thought that maybe my dad killed a chicken so we can eat it.
Oh,
So it was my blood. Yeah.
right. So tell me about some of the, I mean, you did gymnastics. What else have you done so far? Like, let's talk about, let's see, I've kind of like laid out what I've done from childhood to now, from sports to martial arts to weightlifting and yoga. So, like, what kind of stuff have you done?
Yeah, I started with gymnastics, and then I moved to handball, and I've done handball for as a professional athlete for many years. Then I moved into just running. I loved I was doing yoga at the same time, and I learned how to breathe, and I was never tired. I could run miles and miles and miles, and I was never tired. I remember running with some friends who were very good sport people, athletes. How is it? Athletes.
Athletes, yeah.
Were very good athletes, and they were so angry with me because I was not an athlete anymore. I was just working, and I was also smoking at that time. But with that breathing from yoga, I could just go on for hours. I would never. And then the work just took me from this path of sports. I did a lot of dancing in high school, something I forgot to say. I loved it. And I kept in my life, it's at least 15 minutes of moving around. And I told you about how I took those pills. I gained some weight, and then I tried to get into sports a little bit more so I can be in shape. So this is why I was very happy when you said that we should talk about it, because I wanted to share with the others the fact that I've been trying for a long time to find my niche, to find what's good for me now at this age and at this weight. Because when you open, for example, if you're looking for a gym, right? Everyone is telling you this is good for you. The next good thing in sports for you is the bicycle or swimming or this or this, and it was very hard for me to find what's good for me now.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to tell my friends as well to find something that fits them. For me, dancing, I have friends who are going to that Latin dance. I don't know how it's called.
Mhm.
It's great for them. It doesn't work for me. So we have to find what's good for us.
Right. A little off topic here. I did want to point out that we've had conversations prior to this podcast about how like medicines can cause like weight gain. We didn't really
Mm,
touch on it much in the food podcast. I think I might have mentioned it just very briefly there. Like if you have hypothyroidism, I don't remember which one, but you can have one of those, or some medicines, some steroids, for some sicknesses, some cancers, some like life maintaining medicines
mm,
cause weight gain, which is unfortunate. But
yeah.
staying active and being able to keep moving is something that Cornelia has managed to do uh, for just 50 minutes. And as adults, right? So as children, we've got all this time, right? We go to school, we get a couple of recesses or breaks, and then you get out and you're in the playground, and then you get off school and you cram your homework, you get it all done. As you get older, the homework burden gets more, right? So you get in high school, you got more homework than you had in grade school. You get into college, you got more homework than you had in you know high school. So you've got this increase in workload. So you've got less and less time, right? But then you're also working as you leave high school and into college, and then that into adulthood, you're working. You've got these degrees. You've got to pay bills. I mean, so it takes away, and it so getting 50 minutes, excuse me, getting 15 minutes a day is actually pretty good.
Mm. Yeah, it was very important for me because my medication was for anxiety, so I couldn't. I usually y- managed to manage it myself, but
Mhm,
that moment I just couldn't. So they decided to put me on some medication, and being an athlete for many years, it was very hard for me to gain this weight. But I have decided, even and it's very hard to get the weight down, back down, very
mhm,
hard. But I decided at least to be in shape, so I won't breathe hard if I'm climbing some stairs or having some, I don't know, a little run and so on. Although it still happens, it's very hard for me to climb many stairs. I can climb 10, but if it's more than 10, it's still hard, even though I'm
mhm.
trying to be active and do this m- minutes of sports every day.
Right. That's like the hard part is like finding that balance because like most people we just said that like you've got the workload built into their daily life. You combine something else on top of that. It's important to keep that movement a priority because as I've noticed, doing yoga, right? So instead, I prioritize weightlifting for the longest time. And then as my back injury from service got worse, my ability to move in those patterns changed.
Mm,
So I had to figure out a way to tweak it or find something different that I could do. So I actually transitioned more to, and I mean, I lift weights still. I do what I can. And because of the back injury, I've transitioned more into being able to be mobile. So, like, spine mobility, hip mobility, shoulder mobility.
mm,
I combine that with, my weightlifting protocol or my programs, and then mix it with yoga and martial arts that I can do. And I try to make sure that I'm staying active, trying to stay active at least 3 days a week. And if I'm not running, I'm walking, I'm rowing, I'm using the Stairmaster. Um, I do like to run. I usually only run when it's hot, and it seems kind of counterintuitive. Some people
mm.
like to run when it's cold.
Yeah,
I like to
that's what
run when it's like
me.
120
Yeah.
degrees outside.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't like to run, but I like to walk. And my favorite sports, this that I'm doing every day, it's like it's a fast walking with a
Mhm,
lot of moves, like knees, and you move all of your body, and you move all of the muscles. Because I remember my grandma trying to stay in shape as well, but they didn't have these programs they could follow, and she kept going to the walls and trying to put her hand as high as possible. And she
mhm,
was telling me about the muscles in the back, how important they are, and now I can feel it because I have also because I lifted some furniture with my husband, so I got a back injury, and this is how I found out that you cannot do any move while you have this kind of problems, or you can even create some problems with some moves.
mhm,
And going into physiotherapy, they told me which moves I should do, which ones are good for me, and which ones are not good for me.
mhm.
So you can even get paralyzed if you don't make the right moves. It's very important.
Absolutely. I mean, it can cause nerve damage, nerve pinches, disc bulge, disc rupture. Um, so like when I look at working out now, because like I do personal training and I do teach yoga. When I'm doing those things, I'm very conscious about how I'm moving. So like what exercise I'm doing, I'm very conscious about what form. I'm staying with a very particular form. Some of my stuff is modified because of my back injury, but I am staying within a very particular form. In yoga, I'm really focusing. I do like breath to movement. I like the vinyasas, but I also like um, holding a pose
Mm.
and just really trying to get into it. So like that's like one of my favorite parts about doing yoga is like, I like the movement, getting warmed up into each particular sequence, but I really like taking the time in each asana, each pose, and to really try to twist or reach or extend or just feeling the muscle fibers and that like expanding while also I'm still breathing. I'm not breathing. I'm not holding my breath the entire time, right? And I really like to feel that stretch. And honestly, when I went to the doctor and they were like, if you hadn't been doing yoga, you would not be moving as well as you are now. So by doing that, I've actually extended the longevity of, uh, like what I can do.
Yeah, I loved. Unfortunately, I'm only doing breathing now. My favorite pose from yoga, I cannot do it anymore because of the gain of the weight, and it's so upsetting for me. And I love that pose because you could empty your lungs, uh, and it it just appears a state of something. I don't know how to describe it. And I was kept saying a mantra, a very nice mantra. It was amazing. I cannot do it anymore, unfortunately, but I keep doing the breathing exercises, which are very important for our lungs, especially
Hmm.
with the COVID. When COVID started, I restarted the lung exercises.
Hmm. That's good. A lot of strength into the lungs, a lot of air into the lungs, connects you with outside. Now I've talked about my like weightlifting and like a little bit of yoga. Let's talk about a little bit of martial arts here. When I was younger, right? I I wanted to be an action movie choreographer. So I've actually done several short films. Um, I mean short films. So fight sequences that I've choreographed myself. And I've
That's
worked
great.
with a couple other people. Yeah, I mean they're very small, they're very short. Um, one of them like was a college project for film school. One of them was just something I was doing while I was in the military that I wanted to put together. And I'm working on an additional one right now. But I always wanted to be a movement choreographer, which is brings us back to dance and martial arts. Dance and martial arts go hand in hand. And when I look at it, it's about capturing a scene of beauty that
Mm,
is well timed, but it's also like, I'll say it, violent at the same time, but it's also beautiful to see the interactions between the two people. So like just like somebody looks at a ballet
mm,
or like a hip hop dance routine, I look at a fight scene in a movie, right? So when I was younger, I would always try to emulate the moves that I would see in movies, whether they were like jump kicking, triple kicking, whether they were like running off of walls, climbing stuff, or falling off of stuff. I was always trying to do those things the same as they were doing in the movie. Now, catch is that a lot of times those movies, ugh, the catch is a lot of times those movies, they're actually filmed at a slower speed and then they're played back at a normal speed. So what happens is everything's sped up.
mhm.
So I'm as a kid trying to match the speed of like my favorite characters in a martial arts movie and memorize their routines, but I'm trying to be as fast as them. In some cases, I was able to achieve that level of speed. Particularly with my hands, I was able to really get some really good hand speed, motion and choreography going. Transition to now where because I've done those things, I've actually kind of transitioned to a less uh, I've transitioned to a less uh acrobatic style of fighting and more to a grounded and necessary style of fighting. So, or martial arts. So, like, I pull from many different styles that I've learned and practiced, whether it be Tai Chi, what if it was popular in a movie, I was trying to practice it. Tai Chi, Wing Chun, Muay Thai, right? I started out with Taekwondo, right? I take from all of those and then I utilize what I can um, in a practical sense. So nothing super fancy, but I mean, even I bring kung fu into like my modern fighting style now, and it's
Mhm.
nothing super fancy. It's literally just I try to be as efficient as possible and maximize my output while minimizing my energy expenditure. And that's kind of like my fighting. It looks like kickboxing with
So,
some
so,
different types of moves.
so you just made your own martial arts, right? Getting
Yes.
something that fits you from each style and just put something together.
Yes.
Must be interesting. Mm,
Then I do teach it. Like I've had a couple of students. And when I have time, I take on students and then I teach them the same thing. And it's all about basics and repetition because the efficiency comes from the repetition of movement, right? If you repeat a movement over and over again, you will then be able to do that movement more efficiently. I don't know if we've talked about it, but if you repeat something like 1,000 times, it becomes muscle memory. Your muscle remembers what to do. You don't even have to really do it. It's like riding a bicycle. Once you
I,
learn
uh,
how to
I
ride a bicycle.
I can swear by it. After the break I took from sports, when I started again, my muscle got in shape so fast.
Hmm.
So I didn't have a lot of fever, muscle fever, or whatever it's called. I didn't have these problems because my muscles were somehow uh, taught how to work or something.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
yeah,
they just remembered what you were doing before.
yeah.
They're already efficient. They just needed to remember what it was that you had been doing previously, but they maintain a level of efficiency. It's really easy to learn a movement pattern that you've already done before. and it's
Mm,
like a mind-body connection, but it's also retained in the muscles. The muscles remember that experience. Uh, so like doing that, developing my own martial arts style, training the efficiency 1,000 times becomes muscle memory. You get up
mhm,
to 5,000 times of the same repetition, you're going to start seeing a change from muscle memory to instinct.
mm,
So being hypersensitive to my environment around me, I use that to my advantage, and I allow my body to instinctually respond to the environment or threat in using martial arts. Um, typically, if I yeah, sports, if I'm trying to catch a ball, I may not be able to catch it. Be standing there and like, oh, it's right through my hands, right? But if I am not prepared for something to happen, that's when the
mhm,
magic happens. So like even now I've noticed even getting older that like if I get startled into something like a flip or into a tuck and roll off of, a higher object onto a lower object or spin kick or something like that, if I get startled into it, my body instinctually reacts using that combination of muscle memory to instinct, mind body connection. My body will just react to that.
That's very interesting. I remember us talking about you as a nutritionist, and I was thinking that maybe, I mean, not maybe, for sure, food goes hand in hand with movement. So, as a personal trainer, if someone comes to you and says, "I want to learn how to eat healthy," I guess you are talking about movement as well. And I wanted to ask you if, let's say, someone who's having a sedentary life and decides to change their lives, and they're coming to you, um, what are the chances
That's a good
to get?
question.
I'm asking you this because I've experienced this. I don't know how to call it, when you restart uh, doing some sport and you get very tired so fast. You have pains all over your body. You discover new muscles that are very painful,
Mhm.
uh, and you at least when I restarted doing sports, I was very upset, and I thought that I don't have any chance to get back in shape again. And this is why I was asking you the question.
So, like, once somebody, let's say somebody comes from like a sedentary lifestyle or where they've not been as active as they were in the past, their body is under a significant amount of stress already from not moving, right? You'd think movement would cause your body stress, but it does in a good way. It's where the movement has stopped. So your body's under stress because you're not moving. In order to fuel that movement, a healthy diet is important. And we talked about healthy diet in our last podcast, but putting the right fuel in your body allows you to perform better, not just physically, but mentally. So, movement, let's say, is fueled by what you put in to your body. And like for getting somebody away from a sedentary lifestyle with the new muscles, and it's about getting a right taper up so that way they can what they're coinciding like a good fuel diet, so they're going to change their diet slightly, right? And this is for health purposes, right? So we're going to change our diet slightly. um Maybe we're reducing like a 20% calorie load, but then we're also going to incrementally increase the amount of movement over time. So we're not going to start somebody on a 10-mile marathon that hasn't ran for 10 years. We'll start them on something maybe low impact, just to get their body moving.
Mm-hmm.
We'll also do like, it's always important to start with dynamic movement exercises, static stretching, right? So like incorporating these into a daily movement routine is helpful. Um, Off topic here, I was thinking about this. Like contemporary dance, in some cases doesn't really look like dance. It's just somebody moving their body in a different way. Some people it's art, some people it's dance, some people it's just people moving their body in a weird way, right? However, during contemporary dance, we're moving our bodies, or the artist is moving the performer is moving their body in different ways that they wouldn't normally. These are like movements they would not normally do in real life. So that's increasing flexibility and mobility, which all go back into movement. Now, if we look at that and we can add that to somebody that's doing a sedentary lifestyle, let's say we don't just put them in the gym or on the track. We give them something that's fun and exciting for them to potentially incorporate into their movement routine. Whether it's, it could be martial arts, could be Tai Chi, it could be contemporary type dance, it could be um, small muscle engagement, movement routines. I mean, there could be any number of things that could be incorporated into this. The idea is that one, they have to be motivated to continue it, so they have to have fun, right? If you incentivize something, it will continue. So as long as they're having fun, they'll continue. Now that doesn't mean they're not putting in work doing those movements. It just means that we've added a layer to it that wants the that they will want to come back to. So I like to incorporate, just different types of movement patterns. So it could be like funny walk Fridays. It could be, just something different that gives them something to look forward to. It's not just, they're not just working out with me, right? They're getting something more out of it. And it could be, they're having a little bit of playtime, but the playtime is, and I say playtime not in a kid's way. They're having like a movement playtime where they're
Yeah.
exploring their bodies, exploring the limits in the reaches of their body, and then like trying to like push that just a little bit more, right? Maybe they're trying to do like windmill kicks on the ground and they're just trying to like just spin there on the ground. Maybe they're trying to, like break dancing, right? Maybe they're trying to incorporate break dancing. Maybe they're trying to incorporate, you know, the very slow, methodical Tai Chi. Maybe we do just some really off the wall movement patterns. Like, so like people that play zombies in movies, or people that play like characters um, that move weird, those are all people or that are motion capped, even if they're CGI, like doing these weird movements. So like if we can incorporate that into a workout, you're incentivizing the individual to move their body in a different way, not just deadlift, bench press, squat, curl, whatever.
How about someone who is obese?
So the way I look at it is that each body has its own limitation to push, right? So once I establish what the client wants, where they want to go, then I just help them get there, right? So it's about motivation, it's about support, it's about
Mm,
pushing the client, but it's also about finding something they can do, right? So if I present a movement pattern to somebody that they can't perform, that's not incentivizing it, right? That's actually like diminishing their
mm.
desire, because they'll get sad, they'll get
This,
disappointed, they'll get discouraged from doing that because they can't actually do it, rather than
mhm.
finding a way to, we talked about this before, taking a goal, breaking it down into smaller goals. So we'll figure out a way to maybe just take something, they're here, we'll get them right here, and then we'll put another little bit. Maybe it's not the same size. Maybe it's a little bit bigger. Maybe they get a little bit more. And then, up here, maybe that one's just a little bit smaller. And they're slowly, incrementally gaining more, right? You can push the body to be more flexible. There are some limitations in terms of like bones and bone placement and joints and stuff like that. But typically, what I found is that if somebody is willing to do the work to continue those movement patterns, they'll slowly over time through consistency gain uh, what they're looking for.
What would you tell to the ones that are I give my own example. When I 5 years ago, when I gained weight and I decided to at least to remain in shape, uh, being I wasn't sedentary, but I didn't do much sport, much movement. I was just doing daily life, and that was all. So the first times I started, in 5 minutes I lost my breath. I just couldn't do it anymore, and I got so discouraged. I said I'm sure I cannot do it again, and so on. And then I realized that day by day you can get better. So what are you telling to the ones that are deciding to quit because they think that they won't make it?
So it's more about encouragement. So I like if they're like, I'm not going to make it, what I try to explain is that nothing lasts forever. So they're not going to be stuck in this doing this movement forever, right? But as they keep doing it, right? I'll say, look, if you do 5 minutes today, and then tomorrow you do 5 minutes and 1 second, you've
Mm,
gained a second of that time, right? As you get further away from that initial 5 minutes, that initial 5 minutes is going to feel easy to you,
sure.
right? So we that's how I explain it. I was like, we need to make sure that we're encouraging progress rather than putting somebody down, right? So we don't want to say like, oh, okay, yeah, you're not going to get there. Like I'm just, like, come on, like, you gotta get. No, it's more of like a consistency with motivation. So I've had clients before that they progress slower than others, right? So their progress is kind of just moving along, right? There is something to be said for client the client's own engagement, right? So like what work they're putting into. If I'm working with a client once a week, um, and they have a workout routine, that part will be up upon them to continue to do those movement patterns or whatever we've got. Same thing if I'm teaching martial arts, right? If I'm teaching martial arts and I'm with you one hour a week, you're not going to get better just by working with me that 1 hour. You're going to have to put in your own extra time in practice to get better. Um, but typically, I will encourage, right? So the problem I encounter is more of I'm encouraging a repetition to get a client to a certain level. If they feel that they're not advancing enough, then they start to get discouraged. However, I try to point out that learning the basics, right? Whether we're doing like a workout routine in the gym, whether I'm teaching martial arts, whether I'm teaching like, yoga, um, learning the basics is important because that's how you can learn advanced stuff. You're not going to be able, I mean, unless you're a prodigy, you're not going to go into something, pick something up, and just be, let's say martial arts. You're not just going to be able to come into my classroom and pull off like a 540 or a 720 turning tornado kick in the air, right? Unless you're a prodigy or you're hooked
Mm,
up to a wire team. It takes time to get to that point. Now, I've talked about like my martial arts patterns. Um, when I was younger, I used to spend a lot of time in the air. I was a pretty good kicker, really good with my hands. I'd be jump spin kicking all over the place. Several of my tests were spent most of the time jump kicking. It was for Taekwondo. Um, Even like small sparring matches where they'd pin me and a buddy of mine up together, and then all we could do was jump spin kicks, right? And that was always fun to me. As I've moved into a different realm, older, movement patterns changed. So now I'm not doing as many jump spin kicks. I stick to
Mm,
more practical stuff. So I've got, three kicks in their variation that I try to stick to. If I'm committing to a jump spin kick, it's different. But you can see the changes there. It's not discouraged me, right? I haven't practiced. I probably wouldn't be able to pull them off nearly as good as I could when I was, younger. But it's an evolution of movement. So as we get older, clients get older, people get older, their movement patterns evolve. Some
mm,
movement patterns just go to, let's say they'd at least run around the playground as a kid. Now they're getting older, they're working, their movement pattern is walking to and from work, from their car to the store, you know, that's it. It's about what the person wants in life. Do they want to be healthy? Do they want to be mobile? Do they want to be athletic? Like, I mean, it just depends on what their goal is. For me, I already know that with my lower back injury, if I don't stay mobile in my spine, uh, I won't be able to walk very well
mm,
in my older years, right? I'll be having to use a cane and a walker sooner than most people because of that spinal injury. So with that, I'm trying to maximize. I'm actually trying to heal my back through movement. Um, and there's a couple different protocols I'm using. Obviously, I'm reducing my impact driven weightlifting, and I'm transitioning more towards yoga. I'm not
mm,
doing a whole bunch of trick moves in martial arts, even though I didn't really learn a whole bunch of trick moves in martial arts. I'd always try to pull them off, on the trampoline or whatever. I'm sticking to more stuff that's practical. All of my twisting and move contorting and stretching is done using yoga. All of my impact stuff is through martial arts, and my weightlifting has moved from, and I've always been good at low body weight, high power output. So like at my body weight, I'm putting out, you know, the same if or more than people that are a lot bigger than me. And
mm,
that's kind of been my thing. It's like always strength over size. The
mhm.
looks come with the strength, but the strength is what comes first.
Yeah.
My workout routines have transitioned from being, a lot of extra movement in them. And I can still do like CrossFit workouts and, like HIIT workouts and stuff like that. I still do those occasionally when I can. Um, but most of my weightlifting is now slow and controlled weightlifting. I'm still putting out a lot of, poundage. I guess that's the way you'd put it. Putting out poundage, whether I'm pressing it or whether I'm curling it, whether I'm pressing it down or pulling it towards me, right? I'm still utilizing a lot of weight, but the focus is more on slow and controlled movements now. Still moving, but I'm trying to prevent further injury
Mm.
while also maintaining and gaining strength, even at 35.
Yeah. What you're saying is very important. It's so important. At least for me, it was so important to accept my new limits, to rebound and see what I can do next, to find my own kind of sports. For example, I couldn't go on those bicycles where that crazy man is yelling at you, go faster or whatever he's saying, and he's
Mhm.
counting. And I would go, I would be so scared. Probably I would faint there. But I found something that that fits me. I've been to a sand marathon with my daughter in the weekend, when I was doing handball, I had two trainings of 2 hours twice a day on the beach in the summertime, and I could run on the sand all day long. And right now, I thought I'm gonna die. This is where I'm dying. Today I'm dying because it just walking or running on sand just doesn't fit me anymore. So
Mhm.
it's so, for me at least, it was so important to accept that this is who I am right now, but I still have to remain in shape and just find something else that fits me, that can help me with my back injury and so on.
Mhm. That's definitely a good point. I think it's definitely important for people to recognize their limitations, especially when there's an injury involved, um, and accept those things about themselves, right? We can, like, I'm always sitting there, I'm like, my back, it's always like, holding me up, and like, even, and I have to really kind of dive into myself and remember that this is where I'm at now,
Hmm.
but what I can still do, right? So like there are things that I can do now that I couldn't do before. And that's because I've modified like my workout from previous to a different type of workout. Things that I didn't necessarily think that I was going to want to have younger, I'm wanting now. And I think it's definitely important to learn that acceptance of where we're at in our own life. And that's not to say that if we were to try to do something, let's say you say run on sand. I don't think I would like to run on sand now either. But
It's very.
if I decided that I wanted to run on sand and I wanted to continue that, or I wanted to pick that back up, I may not get to where I was when I was younger, which is up here. I may only get to here, right?
Mhm.
But that's better than, being down here. So
Sure.
through repetition, I can at least get some of what I had back. And that's like you talked about muscle memory, right? You had something, you're really good at it, and then when you came back to it, you picked it back up. It took some time to, it was faster than learning a new skill.
Hmm. Sure. And when I'm doing my exercise, my daily exercises, I'm doing it with someone, like a video training in the morning, and she's always saying that you can see how you evolve by the way you catch your breath when you finish. So if it takes when you start, it takes a longer time to catch your breath and get back to the normal breathing.
Mhm.
After a while, it's just faster.
Yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
just,
That's like the adaptation through the workout routine.
I think the most important thing is consistency, and for me it was accepting who I am today. I'm not that athlete when I was 15 years old and 20 years old, 25. I'm someone else now, and I have to somehow find a new recipe for.
So tell me about how you kind of like, okay, so first of all, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a completely different question. For those of us in the United States, we may not know. I don't know what handball is. You're saying sand. It makes it sound like it's like volleyball where there's a net and then you hit the ball one side to the next. What is handball?
I mean, it's not volleyball, and you
Not
don't
volleyball.
play it on the beach. We were just training on the beach, so we can.
Oh,
When you
okay.
train on the sand, your muscles become very hard and
Hmm.
very well trained. But handball is just you play on a field with a ball, 7 people in a team, and you just try to. It's as the name says, handball. You have a small ball, and you just try to score.
Okay. Is there like a goal on each side? So it's like,
Yeah, it's like football by hand,
got it.
maybe
Okay.
a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. So for those of us in the United States, that's soccer, but you're allowed to hold the ball in your hand and run with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just pass it to one another. Just try to. It's very fast. It's a very fast sport. You have to move very fast, and you have to have this like you are saying, this instinct. This is when I have. This is now I can hit the ball there. I can throw it there. I can try to score right now, and it's very. I loved this sport. Of course, this is why I've been doing it for so many years.
So now that we've answered that question, let's talk about let's go in a little bit more depth of your move from what you used to do younger to what you're doing now. So are you still trying to figure it out? Or are you working through it, or have you kind of figured it out? I know you said we've talked outside of the podcast about how you do, like, you do yoga, you do, your workout routines, which is a lot of calisthenics. So you're not using like a lot of extra weight. You're just maybe here and there a little bit of extra weight, but you're doing a lot of movement and you
Yeah.
can do it at home. So talk to me about that.
Yeah, I'm doing it mostly at home. So when I restarted, when I gained the weight and I decided that I have to remain in shape, when I started with hard things because I thought of myself that I'm still able to do it. I couldn't. It was so discouraging for me. Really bad days. I had really bad days. And then I decided to try to find something more fit for myself. And I found some walking program, but you were walking at home and you just stand still. You just walk in the same place, but you're doing all kinds of movements for your muscles. So you move absolutely every muscle in your body. You just and for me, it's very important. The mobility is very important for me, and the what do you call it? Resistance? Not
Hmm.
resistance. Stamina.
Hmm.
Let's call it. And the stamina is very important for me. So I can walk for a very long time without getting tired. I cannot run that much without getting, but I can walk for a very long time. So n- for my age and my weight at this moment, this is the perfect exercise because you're moving all of your muscles. You stay in one place. You don't have to go anywhere uh, because we don't have a lot of time, right? These days. Um, and it was fulfilling because I could do it. I started with 10 minutes, then 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Then I decided to do a stretching program, which I love. I love to do stretching. Um, and then I found the crazy woman on YouTube who's doing some crazy I cannot go more than 7 minutes with her, but I'm still doing it. I the first time I lasted 30 seconds, and then 1 minute, and this is what I'm saying, you just build a little bit in there. And now I'm at the point where I can do all of this in one morning without affecting me like a few years ago when I couldn't breathe. I should have I wanted to sleep all day, then I felt so tired.
Hmm.
Now somehow it brings energy, it gives me energy. And even though I have problems with losing the weight I should, being in shape and seeing that I can move, I can be mobile and so on is very important for me.
I think that's good. I think that's great. And I think it's also important. You bring up a lot of good points about acceptance, but also how finding something that is good for you.
Mhm.
And it may not be the same for everybody, right? So, what's good for you may not be good for the next person or the
Yeah,
person, and I think it's important for each person to find what they're looking for.
yeah.
And sometimes that comes from trying a whole bunch of different things.
Hmm.
Rarely will you go out into the world and pick one thing and stick with it, or stay just doing that one thing.
Yeah.
You add to it, you change it, it morphs, kind of like a dance or a movement pattern, right? Each time you're adding more to that movement pattern, you're gaining experience, and then whatever you've learned previously is a little bit easier. I think it's important for people to understand how healthy it is to try different things, different types of movement, and to figure out what works best for them.
Yeah. And one more thing, if for the ones that are having some extra weight, like I am, like I do, you can still be, I mean, I'm in a very good shape. I can do so many moves. Most of my younger friends who are not moving around, who are not doing any kind of sports, they cannot do the movements I can do. They cannot last as much as I can while 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 we are going for a walk. They're trying to find a bench very soon, sit down and so on. So even if you're overweight, you can still be in shape. And I remember my first dancing instructor, she was obese. She loved to eat cakes. She was crazy about cookies and cakes, but she was moving great. She was a great dancer. And after the training, she was eating that cake because she loved it, but she was in very good shape. So you can be in a very good shape. Of course, the diet is very important, the food is very important. It's important for the energy and so on, but even if you're overweight, you can still be in shape.
Absolutely. For me, the transition from like being strong has translated into I can be strong, but I can still be mobile. And in fact, it's translated from I can be strong, really strong, and I need to be mobile. So my movement has, you can clearly see it shifted from like weightlifting, powerlifting, from that to I could still be strong. I need to be mobile. So my movement now is more about mobility and flexibility. But there is something for that because within mobility and flexibility is strength.
Sure. It is a very hard, even much harder for someone like you who is such a passionate sports player, let's say. I don't know another word. But it must be very, very hard to find yourself limited at one point. And you have to work with yourself so much, I think, mentally to accept the new limits and go on.
I do. And working through those things, like I'm opening new doors. So like as a door closes, a new door opens. And I think that's important for everybody to kind of like remember is that like my powerlifting and like hardcore lifting 2 to 4 hours a day, that door is kind of, it's still kind of a little bit open. I still kind of do the workouts, but it's not
Mm.
all the way open like it used to be. For me now, it's more staying flexible, staying movement oriented. So like whether I'm wiggling and jiggling and doing some weird movement pattern, martial arts choreography, or I'm doing yoga, those things have now come through more than like the powerlifting. In fact, if I would say that because of the powerlifting, I'm able to be as strong as I am now with the movement patterns I'm doing.
Yeah. I
Anyway,
remember,
oh,
sorry to interrupt. I remembered now when you're talking about this, that Andrew Tate said a very controversial thing, that depression doesn't exist, just go to the gym. And for me, I never had depression, but when I have bad days, we all have bad days or bad periods of time, I can honestly say that moving helps me so much. It just gives you a different state of mind, a different energy. I don't know.
it does. Movement brings energy to you. Like you think you're expending energy, but it releases a lot of good endorphins and positive um, psychological effects come from movement.
Sure.
Well, thank you, folks. I hope you've enjoyed this episode on movement. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below. We're going to link both of our websites in the description box, and we'll see you in the next one.